aspects of answer writing and what are the important provisions to be or important elements to be discussed or kept in mind while attempting an answer. Now let us focus on understanding the questions, understanding the purpose of the questions. See, if you observe a UPSC previous year paper or any question, here they will be giving a clear directive of how to approach the exam or how to approach the question. The question itself gives a directive. See, it gives a clear directive on how to understand and how to analyze the question. These are called directive words and they form as a guiding light for our answer writing. See, these directive words are crucial in how do we structure and approach the answer. These are crucial in enhancing our answer writing skills, analytical ability, or logical presentation, and finally, fetching great marks. There are several types of directives, like the question may pose regarding discuss, define, elucidate, evaluate, critically analyze. These are different directives which we will be discussing one by one for having a brief understanding of what essentially the meaning of these terms, how do we interpret these directives in answering the given question. So here is a list of the directives which will be focusing, and we will be giving a one example for each directive and how do we interpret these directives in answer writing. These we will be discussing right now. See, the first directive is discuss. Here directly the question is asking about discuss. Means we have to, for understanding these types of directive, we need to give a balanced view of the topic. Here the question, let us go through the example. Here the question is about discussing the main contributions of Guptas and Cholas to Indian heritage and culture. We need to balance both. We need to balance the contributions of Guptas and those of Cholas to Indian heritage and culture. We should not excessively focus on either Guptas or Cholas. We need to have a balanced picture of the given context should be provided in the answer. This is one of the very basic directive. Discuss means essentially presenting both positive and negative aspects or diverse aspects of the given question, their evidence and reasoning such that it will be a balanced answer. This is one of the most basic directives. Next, apart from the directives like discuss, there will be other terms or other directives such as define. So here, the specifically asks about a detailed understanding, a definition, its discussion of issues or any theoretical or subjective related topic. Define is essentially explaining about theoretical aspect, its definition, its features, its properties, or its essential components. These aspects should be effectively discussed in the answer. See, let us go through the example. Here the question is about defining potential GDP and explain its determinants. The defined directive is essentially focused on theoretical aspects. Means first we need to go with potential GDP, its definition, its determinants, the principles behind potential GDP, and its significance in the real world. These are the important aspects of how we deal with this directive. Next, the third one being explain. This is also a very simple one. We need to have a logical and sequential explanation of the given question. See, in the given example, here it clearly asking about the mechanism and occurrence of cloudbursts in the context of the Indian subcontinent. So here we need to explain about the mechanism of cloudburst, how do we define a cloudburst, its mechanism, its origin, the consequences of cloudburst, and specifically its impact and its significance within the Indian subcontinent. Essentially, it focuses on a logical and sequential explanation of the topic given in the question. See, that here the most important aspect to be remembered is it's define the key terms. See, in the question, the key terms is the cloudburst and Indian subcontinent. These two are our key terms, cloudburst and Indian subcontinent. There should be a detailed explanation of these two within the question. Next, the first three directives which I have discussed are very much simple and self-explanatory, like define, discuss, and explain. The next one is analyze. Analyze essentially means dividing a comprehensive topic into subcomponents and addressing each of them independently into a detailed logical understanding. See, when there is a question about internal security threats and trans-border crimes along Myanmar, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, we need to have a clear explanation about each border along Myanmar, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Here we need to explain in detail about the internal components. What are the internal security threats in Myanmar, in Bangladesh, and Pakistan? And also discuss about various security forces. So here there should be more clarity in dividing the topics. Subcategorization is very important when the question specifically demands about analyze. Analyze essentially focuses on dividing subconstitute dividing the topic into numerous parts such that each part is separately addressed and focused. Next, after this is the directive described is pretty much self-explanatory, which focuses on giving a generalistic overall perception of the topic. See, if anybody asks or any question is given on the topic with describe or description, it means we need to give a general overall overview of the question. See, if there is a question on describe Indian diversity, we need to explain about in its overall picture. We need to give a holistic picture of the topic. If it comes about Indian diversity, we need to explain about the linguistic diversity, religious diversity, culinary diversity, all these aspects to be discussed in detail. So we need to give a holistic picture when there is a specific question or a specific directive called describe is mentioned. See, in the example here, we can see the question is specifically on the types of primary rocks. So here we need to have a detailed description of what are the primary rocks, how they are formed, what are the different types and their characteristics. Means they are formed of igneous rocks, they are of volcanic origin, the several types of primary rocks, what are their characteristics? Do they hold fossils? Or what is their composition? All these aspects should be detailedly described. This is the significance of writing an answer with the descriptive or with the directive word describe. Next, continuing our discussion on dealing with different directives in answer writing, we'll be discussing about the next directive, which is differentiate or distinguish. Essentially, it focuses on providing a comparative account between two things or two comparative models, whether it may be anything, whether let us have an example, whether it is like comparison between Harappan or Vedic, Himalayan or Western Ghats as given in the example. So here the main focus is on explaining the differences between the items. See, here this question is more generic. Differentiate the causes of landslides, the Himalayan and Western Ghats. But they need two specific questions like differentiate the American judiciary or American principle of uh, due process of law versus Indian principle of procedure established by law. We need to go to the specific details and differences between the both systems. The main focus is on differentiating the two and highlighting the differences. Next. Next comes one of the most repeated or most asked comment or justify. Comment or justify essentially means apart from giving an understanding of the question, we need to give our viewpoint. It is very important to provide our own viewpoint and justify it. We need to justify through evidence, examples, such that our view is valid and needs to be authenticated. This is an important directive comment. Till now, what we have discussed, this is one of the very important directives is comment or justify. See, this is one of the very recurrent directives which will be asked because here we need to present our analytical skills and our analytical and logistical understanding comes in play while addressing the questions like comment because we need to give our viewpoint and to substantiate them with our own reasoning, evidence, and examples. Next, continuing our discussion, the next directive is trace. This is also one of the basic directives where we can easily understand. We need to give a glimpse or a detailed description of events or any process or any activity which has been a question which has been asked in the question. It is mostly relevant to the chronological sequence or the logical process involved. See, the trace essentially means providing answers in a logical and structured content. The structure is most important in this question. We need see if there is a question regarding the Indian freedom movement, we need to present a chronological sequence starting with the 1857 revolt, the rise of moderates, the Vande Mataram movement, emergence of extremists, the rise of Gandhi, non-cooperation, quit India movement, all. The sequence need to be maintained such that there will be a clear progression of events or a clear progression of process. This is most important in this directive. Next, the other important directives which needs to be focused is do you agree or disagree? See here, this is also similar to the directive of comment because we need to provide our own view. We need to justify it whether the statement given is correct or not and to what extent is it correct. Here we need to specify our stance. We need to particularly mention that our viewpoint is it is positive, it is negative with substantiation, with examples. See, any point or any statement without example cannot be substantiated. Without example, it cannot be considered. Examples ensure that your point is valid and justified. Next, the coming directives are more of self-explanatory. The enumerate or list down, it essentially means providing key aspects or details in a logical fashion. The important elements in the periodic table or important aspects of Indian constitution or the problems and prospects of inland water transport. It means providing a list of important aspects in a logical fashion. This is the important aspect of enumerate. When specifically asked regarding enumerate, the problems or enumerate the significance of Indian Panchayati Raj. We need to jot down a detailed structure list of aspects. Here, the main focus is on the list of key points, and here it is important that we need to present the points in a hierarchical fashion. See, this is very important when we are addressing enumerate. When there is a question with the directive enumerate is asked, the hierarchy of points is very important because when there is a question simply stating that what is the salient features of Indian Constitution, the most important or the most crucial point should be mentioned in the first, like the supremacy of the Constitution, the democratic principle of the Constitution, or the popular sovereignty. These are the key elements which needs to be mentioned in the first, followed by other points. See here in enumerate, the hierarchy of the points is very important, such that it gives great marks in for your answer. The, that's why the list is should be also very structured in such way that the point with the first priority comes at the top and the hierarchy continues. Next, after enumerate, we will be discussing about compare and contrast. This is more or less similar to the earlier directive of distinguish or differentiate. Here, we need to present both the similarities and differences. Earlier differentiated focuses mainly on differences, but in this compare and contrast, we will be presenting a mix of both the similarities and the differences and any contrasting aspects between the two topics. Here, this is the importance of compare and contrast. We need to provide both. We need to balance out. What are the similarities, what are the differences, and what is any nuance or any distinctive element of each of them. See, here in compare and contrast, we need to highlight the distinctive elements of each of these topics or comparative subjects, apart from mentioning the similar and dissimilar aspects. Next, here comes our most important directives. Evaluate, critically analyze. These are the most important directives in this whole topic about understanding directives. See, the term critically evaluate essentially focuses on the negative aspects or demerits of the given question. See, this critically evaluate should be effectively understood by the aspirant. When the question is specifically asking about critical evaluation or critical analysis, we need to focus on the give primacy to the negative aspects apart from positive aspects. The primacy should be negative, followed by the positive, with the conclusion of way forward. Conclusion and way forward. The critical means essentially focusing on a reasoned argument. We need to argue the given statement. The given statement should be argued and with valid reasons. See, here the important aspects are two. We need to critique the statement and that too constructive criticism with a valid viewpoint. Because every statement or every criticism you mention, it should be supported by a valid argument with an example. As I have already stated, without any substantive example, your criticism or your critic cannot be considered. These are one of the important directives which test our analytical and logical abilities. The critically evaluate and critically analyze. This specifically focuses on breaking the question into individual topics and focusing on critical aspects of the each topic. See, every topic has to be addressed critically in its own. See, here in the given example, the question is about agricultural subsidies. Here the question is asking critically analyze the agricultural subsidy regime with reference to the distortions created by it. Here we need to be very specific. The question is about agricultural subsidy regime and also the distortions which are created by it. So we need to focus on both aspects separately. One on First one on different types of agricultural subsidies, what are the loopholes in them, and also what are the distortions caused by them. This is how we